The TLDR is that this is a great game that captures the spirit of pulp 1920s Arkham Horror action. It has an interesting and novel dice system and surprisingly good published materials so soon after the game was released. I personally was a big skeptic at first when this game just came out, but it really won me over after actually playing it. And I think this game gets a lot of crap for the wrong reasons, which we'll get into. But my bottom line is that if anything about this game sounds appealing to you, the art, or you already play some of the other Arkham Horror games, or you like Lovecraft, then you should get this game. It does not try to compete with Call of Cthulhu. This is a different experience. Welcome to Polyhedron, my name is Ron. So, Arkham Horror RPG is a role-playing game that's based on the card game, which was based on the board game, which was inspired by the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game, which was based on some stories a super racist guy wrote like 100 years ago. Over the years, a few flavors of the Lovecraft experience have emerged. You have the cosmic and psychological horror, where your characters are somewhat realistically fragile in the face of the horrors beyond, both physically and mentally. Call of Cthulhu and Delta Green both represent this style of play extremely well. And then you have the more pulpy, action-oriented flavor where the investigators punch ghouls and all kind of eldritch horrors in the face. This style is captured by the Arkham Files line of products from Fantasy Flight, including the Arkham Horror board games, Eldritch Horror, which is my favorite board game of all time, the absolutely fantastic Arkham Horror living card game, and now the Arkham Horror role-playing game. And there are a few other role-playing games that also try to go for this niche. The Arkham Horror role-playing game is made by Edge Studios, which is the RPG studio of Asmodee, who acquired Fantasy Flight, so I guess they just got access to all the Arkham stuff, so they said, let's make an RPG. I was a skeptic at first. When I saw the announcement, I didn't quite understand why we need an Arkham Horror RPG when we already have Call of Cthulhu, and you can sort of do pulp action with Call of Cthulhu, and there are supplements for it. You can do it if you really want to, and there are other derivatives that you can use as well. So I had the cynical view of, is this just a way to make more money off the Arkham Horror franchise without too much effort? But I was like, hey, why am I being an asshole about this? They have this great IP. The Arkham Horror board game, while it feels a little dated now, is a pretty special game. And Eldritch Horror is my favorite board game, where they also reused all of the same art to make another very good game. And the Arkham Horror living card game is one of the best games out there, which they, once again, reused all the same art and a lot of the storytelling, some of the text even, to make a great game. So, of course, why not an RPG? They have a pretty good track record. So yes, Arkham Horror RPG does capitalize on the art and the writing and the style of all the other products in this line, and it's an incredibly well-produced game and a fantastic rule system. Also, just 2 years into this game, and it has a lot of published materials between the core book, the starter set, the Arkham Mysteries book of one-shots, and now the massive Terra Antarctica premium campaign, or premium adventure as they call it. As of making this video, this game does not have very good VTT support, and some of the products don't have PDFs, which is a shame. Let's talk about how the system works and why I think it's cool, and then we'll get into the products themselves. The core of this game is what they call the dynamic pool system. Each player has a pool of 6 dice, which they need to spend in order to do actions. Simple actions will have you just spending a die without rolling it, and complex action will have you roll as many dice as you want out of the pool. All dice are d6s, and success on a roll is determined by your skill. So let's say that you do a lore check, and your lore is a 4+, that means that you need a 4 or above on any of your dice to succeed. So if you really want to succeed on this lore check, you can spend more dice for a better chance. This pool of dice is also your health and sanity. When you take damage, it blocks off spots on your pool. So if you took 2 damage, you now have 4 dice to spend instead of 6. If you take horror, you replace dice in your pool equal to the amount of horror you took with a dice of with dice of different color. So when you roll a 1 on any of those, you take a trauma, which are some nasty condition that's being inflicted on you. The game is played in scenes. In narrative scenes, the investigators are researching something in a library, looking for clues, or doing anything that doesn't require moment-by-moment action like a chase or combat, which are covered by structured scenes. In a narrative scene, the investigators spend their dice doing stuff, and then the pool refills at the start of the next scene, or the next narrative scene, or structured scene, or when something meaningful in the scene changes and the GM decides that it's time to refill all of the pools. When everybody runs out of dice, it usually means the scene should end. In a structured scene, like combat, your dice refill at the beginning of your turn. There's no initiative. Usually the investigators all go first and they can spend their dice in any order they wish. Then all the enemies go, and again, the GM can spend all of those dice in any order they want. Unless the GM decides the investigators were surprised, and then maybe the enemies go first. This becomes a resource management game as you have to decide how many dice you want to spend and how many you want to keep for reactions like blocking or dodging attacks. A very important principle of this game is that you cannot do the exact same action more than once in the same narrative scene or on the same turn in a structured scene. So you can't, for example, try and find clues in the library, fail, and then try the exact same thing again. You're going to have to come up with a different method of doing it. What you can do is you can commit more dice to the test for a better chance. And in combat, you can't try and shoot an enemy, fail, and then spend another die to just try the same thing again. You can attack the same enemy with a different weapon or attack a different enemy with the same weapon. You just can't do the exact same action twice. This forces you to either spend more of your dice if you really want more chances to succeed, or hedge your bets and do something else. Okay, that's the core system. There's obviously some more rules, but let's talk about it. My players and I had so much fun with this system. Your action economy also being your equivalent of hit points, and also this built-in timer when a scene should end and move on. I thought it was just brilliant and it felt novel. We play a lot of RPGs and this felt like a new experience. Also, coming from system where your roll is what it is, like when you roll a d20, and you roll a 3, and then you roll another d20, and you roll a 3. In Arkham Horror, the mechanic of being able to decide how many dice you want to commit to a roll gives the player so much more control. You decided you really need to hit this enemy, so you spent more dice to increase your chances, but now you don't have enough dice to defend with on the next turn if you didn't take out that enemy. That dynamic created a lot of really exciting moments at the table for us. As a GM for this game, I was a little worried about the mental load of managing all these dice for all the enemies, because if your investigators are fighting 4 ghouls and a cultist or something, each of those enemies has a stat block of their own, and they have their own set of dice that you need to manage, and they have their own abilities and everything. But I found that because of the sequencing of combat, that everybody on one side goes and then everybody on the other side goes, it's not too hard. I will say that you do need to know what the abilities are because it's significant, right? It's hard to just look at a stat block for the first time when you're running these enemies and then still do something cool. That is true actually for both investigators and enemies. The knacks, which are kind of like the special abilities in this game, they're very cool and they're very useful. They bend the rules in interesting ways. So this is a game where while you're not limited by what's on your character sheet, you do need to know what's on your character sheet. The vibe of this game is definitely pulp action. I don't know that I would call this game a horror game, but that also very much depends on the adventure you're doing and your GM. The heroes are very survivable, but before too long, they'll have lots of damage, limiting their dice, and lots of horror dice, which means there's an increased chance of a trauma. And there's a mechanic where you can clear all of your damage and take an injury, which then will put yet another limitation on you. So they'll be racking up these things as you go. And the way it works is that every time you take an injury or a trauma, you roll a d6 on a table and you add +1 for every injury or trauma you already have. And if you get an 11 or above, you're dead. So this is a surprisingly robust system that I think can support a lot of play. And I only say surprisingly because, like I said, I was skeptical at first. I don't really know why. I apologize for that. I looked at the starter set, which we'll talk about in a bit, and I was like, this is too board gamey. The dice system is a gimmick. No, this is a thoughtfully designed game made by people who love the source material. And as an Arkham Horror card game and Eldritch Horror player, it was deeply cool to explore similar scenarios. Okay, now let's talk about the products themselves. As of making this video, we got the core book, the starter set, the Arkham Mysteries book, which has a bunch of short adventures in it, and the Terra Antarctica premium adventure. As you can see, I have become invested in this game. By the way, I bought all of these with my own money. Edge Studios didn't send me anything, which they really should. And all of this came out within less than 2 years of the game being available, which I think is pretty impressive. And there's more content that's being announced. The starter set came out first, and many of the reviews for it are bad. And I'm talking about the reviews. The review was badly made, not the product. I'm gonna get a little ranty and judgmental here, but if you bought this product and you ran it to a bunch of strangers with little to no prep, and then you only ran half of the first act, you are not qualified to review this product. There is a puzzle in the starter set, 2 similar slidey, movie-aroundy puzzles that are not great. They take too long, they slow things down, but hey, you know what we can do with our critical thinking skills? Not do the puzzles, and then the problem is solved and the game is fantastic. The starter set is a 3-act story, which is roughly the same story you play in the Arkham Horror card game starter set, which I thought was very, very cool. It comes with a bunch of awesome evidence and handouts, and there's a cipher that you need to figure out, which was extremely cool. But of course, you need to know your audience. Like, I'm not gonna bring Dune Imperium Uprising to a bunch of people who only ever played Monopoly, and then I'll be like, this is not a good game. It's a great game. The game is not the problem in this situation. What I'm trying to say in this video is that Dune Imperium Uprising is really, really good. Worker placement and deck building, are you kidding me? Well, I have run the starter set. I think it's great. It's incredibly high production value. It's very engaging. Yes, it's a little bit on rails, but it's a starter set. You're learning the game. My main criticism is that it doesn't do a good enough job actually teaching the rules. So you do need the core book with the starter set. The core book does a great job teaching the rules. And also there's a great video from Becca Scott from Good Time Society. She did this great 15-minute video teaching the rules, and they did a one-shot GM'd by the amazing Ross Bryant. And it's the one-shot that you find in the core book, so it's great if you're prepping for that. So to sum up on the starter set, I think it's really good. The slidey puzzles are bad. Just don't use them. Problem solved. It's cool what they were going for with them, but it just doesn't work. So unless you have an avid puzzle enthusiast in your table, just skip them. Even then, I would say probably skip. The core rulebook, amazing. It does such a better job teaching you the rules in simple language. It's concise. It has a lot of examples. I think they could have made some better layout decisions with character creation, but it's a simple enough process. So it's really nitpicking. Lots of lore to draw from, especially if you're not a big Lovecraft reader and you need a primer on some of this stuff. Lots of enemies, a great starter one-shot that you can just run pretty much from the book. I love the core book. It's really good. And this one does have a PDF. The other 2 products, take my review with a grain of salt because I have not run them yet. Once I do, I'll probably make another video. Arkham Mysteries is a book of one-shots or short adventures that you can run. Many of these will be familiar to you if you've played any of the Arkham Horror stuff. I've read through it. It is of the same high quality that I have now come to expect from this franchise, but some of the adventures are a little thin and might require you to do a little bit more work to come up with clues. That's actually a good opportunity to talk about the style of game that you could do with this system. At its core, Arkham Horror is about investigators investigating. So you need a mystery and you need clues. I think it's entirely possible for you to write your own campaign with this or adapt scenarios from the Arkham Horror card game, which are very well structured, or even use stuff from Call of Cthulhu or any Lovecraft story or whatever. But I do think that this is a game where it's gonna need to rely on a lot of published materials. And I think Edge Studios understand that given the amount of materials they have released. I've only glanced through Terra Antarctica because it is massive, but at first glance, I'm very excited about it. Narratively, it's a sequel to At the Mountains of Madness, which is one of the best Lovecraft stories. I've been told. It comes in 3 little booklets, each one of them about 50 or 60 pages long, and lots of handouts and maps, just like the starter set. It also comes with new pre-generated characters. There's a lot in this box. I need to dig into it more before I can intelligently talk about it, but it seems pretty amazing, and I'll be honest, I'll be devastated if this doesn't turn out to be amazing. I think you can guess my bottom line here, and I think I already said it at the beginning of this video, which feels like 100 years ago. This is a great system. It brings to life the things that I love about the Arkham Horror board games and card games. It already has so much content for us to play with. It does not compete for the same spot as Call of Cthulhu, I think, at all. I will say that there's probably a big overlap between players that enjoy this system and enjoy this system, but that's a good thing. If you have a table that likes the board games, that's into Lovecraft, that likes figuring stuff out from evidence and solving puzzles, or maybe even regularly plays Call of Cthulhu or Delta Green and just wants another flavor of like the similar mythos, this is going to be a great game for that type of table. And if you wanted me to make a guide about the starter set, let me know. But yeah, that's all I got. Go play a game.